We'll try this again. All right. So once we're all dated up here in the notes over on page 5, today we are angle heavy. So when we're looking at angles, we are working with, in this case, what are called complementary and supplementary angles. And there's one major thing to know with each of them, and that is, how many degrees are there? So complementary has a right angle. That's what this little square here is. Anybody know how many degrees is a right angle? 90. Okay, so complementary angles are 90 degrees. Why is that important? Because if I have two angles, oh, we're getting into the variables and stuff again, okay, that add up to 90, what we can do is we can take the individual pieces, the 2x plus 6, the 4x, add them all up, and set them equal to 90. I think I'm going to add that up here. We're going to add to get to 90. So how is this similar to some of the ones that we were doing yesterday? Well, if I look and I remember back to yesterday, we're like, hey, is there any distributing to do? If there was, we'd do that here, but I don't see any parentheses. So no, we don't have to do that. But then step 2 is, do I have any like terms? And I do. So we're going to get those put together. 2x and 4x is 6x. Plus 6 is 90. And now we're back into two-step equation mode. Opposite of what we see in here. So the opposite of adding 6 is to subtract. What's my last step going to be? What's the opposite of multiplying by 6? Okay. So, similar to yesterday, once you've got the angle, well, you've got x, we still need to find the missing angles. So, you're like, okay, well, how do I know what to plug in, but how do I label them so Hardy knows which one I'm talking about? What you're going to want to do is whatever point is in the middle. So like if I'm doing, let's do this. Again, if you need colors, I got colors in the back. So this is angle WYZ. I have to be able to just flow. I don't want to mix my letters up. You could do ZYW. That would also be okay. And so for this one, I'm going to take the expression on the inside. And I'm going to replace the x with the 14. That's angle. Angle. And I can plug this in my calculator or do it in my head. So 2 times 14 is 28, plus 6 would be 34 degrees. Thank you. And then my other one is my red angle here. And again, I can go either direction with my letters. ZYV, I'm with you. And ZYV, here's my expression, for x, which just means I'm going to multiply 4 times the x value I found. And I can check to make sure that I've done it right by just adding those up. 34 and 56, they add up to 90. I'm good. And we can see how that works. The only difference is going to be when we get to supplementary, the process works the same. But instead of 90, the angles are going to add to 180. So you're like, well, how do I tell the difference again? If I've got a right angle, okay, one of those little squares in the corner, okay, makes it almost like you got a floor and a wall coming together. That's 90. Supplementary means it just makes a straight line, the two angles that I've got here. So in this case, I'd take my 2x plus 3 and my x minus 9. And set that equal to 180, because again, the two lines make a straight line instead of a right angle. We've said before, we want to make sure we keep that 1 in front of our x. So here we go into combining like terms mode. Again, anything on the same side of the equals, I can go ahead and do 2 plus 1 is 3. This time we actually get to do it twice. But watch your signs. Combine doesn't mean, oh, it's 3 and 9, it's 12. No. 3 and negative 9 gets me negative 6. So signs do matter. How do I undo minus 6? That's 6. And just like we did over here in the first one, (186) divided by 3 is 62. But just like we said in the first one, that's my x value. Good job. We're doing the algebra well. But I still got to find my two angles. So again, I would suggest doing this in colors, especially with it being new. So I'd be like, okay. So angle, and again, you can go either way. So ABC works here. CBA would work here. And I'm going to take this, but I'm going to plug the x in. So 2 times 62 plus 3. Type that into my calculator or use your brain if you want to challenge here. 124 and 3 is 127. Now we cross our fingers. We've done the other one right, and these are going to add up in a minute. My other angle, oh dear, CBD, or DBC, either one works. I plug in my x value for x. Subtract that, and again, what I'm looking for is, do my two angles add up to 180? And they do. So I'm fairly confident I did that one right. But again, getting some colors or separating things is going to make this easier when you're trying to use this on the practice or the quiz or whatever that is to try and make it a little bit smoother. Okay, one more angle issue here. Triangles. So one question. How many degrees are there in a triangle? Any ideas? How many degrees are there in a triangle? Close. So you're like, wait, that's how this was. Like, these are the same thing? In total, yes. Supplementary angles add up to 180. So do angles that are in triangles. So, similar thing again. Nothing really different. And I will say this as we're doing it here. If you're like, holy moly, dude, that's like way too much stuff to be writing. There's too many things to be kind of messing with these on. If you want, you could, instead of writing it completely out like this for your first step, if you know you're going to add them, you could just be like, okay, I'm gonna combine my like terms straight from the picture. You don't have to do it this way every time, but you can. So 5 and 3 is 8, and 3 is 11. X. And then my numbers, again, pay attention to signs. 39 plus 50 would be 89. Minus 8 is 81. Again, no shame in going to the calculator at all. And we always end up back at the same place. We're ending up back where we have a two-step equation. We've had lots of examples of these to see. So we do the opposite of plus 81. We get that in there. And that last step, as it usually tends to be, is just to divide, because that's the opposite of multiply. And I get my x value. So, when you have a triangle, you're not going to be expected to use 3 letters like you do in the regular angles to mark things. I mean, you could, but you don't need to. So, for instance, here, if I say, okay, I'm just going to call this angle S, because there's only one angle going here, so we can do that. And just like we have in the rest, when you get to X, we're going to plug in the 9. Grab my calculator if I need it here. Okay, we got 77 degrees there. And again, just pick your next angle. You don't have to go in any particular order. Okay, T, same thing. We start to write when we get to the X. We plug that number in. Let's see, 45 and 39 would be 84. One last one. That's the one thing with triangles. We got the extra angle to work with. And again, we're just taking the expression that's there. Plugging in our 9 for the x. And again, if you want to pipe that in the calculator, there's nothing wrong with that. 27 minus 8 is 19. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure. 180. We're good. Nothing went too cuckoo, which is nice. So we get that situated. So now we'll ask, oh dear, word problem. Okay. The length of a rectangle is 4 times the width. Perimeter is 40, find the length of the width. You're like, okay, wait a minute. The length, so there's my length, is 4 times the width. And they said the width is W. So those would each be 4W. And this other width, because these are the same, would be W, or we could say 1W. So we're going to write an equation. So if we're looking here, the perimeter, which is when we add up all the sides, is 40. So the equation would be taking all those sides, so a 1W and a 4W and another 1W and another 4W, and adding all those up, and you're like, well, wait a second. They're like all like terms. They all have a W. That's true. So 1 plus 4 is 5, and 1 more is 6, and 4 more is 10. W equals 40. And I only got to do a one-step equation this time. That's kind of nice. So I actually, it says to find the width and length. I actually did one of those already. I just found the width. It's 4. I don't have to do anything else. My length is 4 times W. And I can get that one that way. It does take patience with these. It's like, dang, there's a lot of stuff going on. And there is on some of this. But that's why, again, we get these, we kind of keep them close. And then when we're doing the practice, it makes life a little bit easier. So let's kind of break this down for a second. So in your practice packet, when we're looking, again, pay attention to what the angles look like. Like here, I don't see a right angle. So I'd use my supplementary angle, help the 180 to get there. But if I see a little right angle there, that's going to be when I'm using my complementary angles. So every single one of these throughout this page on 25 and 26 is going to give me, well, this one's pretty straightforward. That's a triangle, even though I don't know what happened to some of my, must have been using some whiteout or something. But I've got my triangle, I've got my application. And then, oh, Hardy. Why, Hardy? Why do you keep putting the review on here? Because it's stuff we need. So, I want to jump in on 2 of these. Then I swear I'm going to get out of the way and let you do your thing for a bit. I don't think it's going to be surprising to any of you, though, the 2 that I do. So we'll see. I'm going to do number 5 first. Because here, that 1/3, you're like, ugh. Hardy, don't like fractions. Fractions are brutal. Well, here's our fix for that. We have 2 options. when we see fractions like this, if we don't like them, you notice I put parentheses around it. If you do parentheses and 1 divided by 3 and just type that to multiply times the next number, not the x. The calculator's smart, but it's not like ChatGPT. It cannot do the x thing. I can get that part done. And then I do it again for the next one. I'm like, okay, 1/3 times 12 is 4. Or multiplying by 1/3 is the same as just dividing by 3. 6 divided by 3, 12 divided by 3, I get the same answers. Are these like terms? Can I put those together and call it like 6xy? No. They're not the same. X and y aren't the same thing. So I can't do anything. That's one thing I've noticed where we've had some trouble. Want to make sure we've got it. The second one, and the final one I'm playing with, is going to be 6. Here's what I want to avoid. I don't want to do 5 minus 2 first. Why not? Because multiply comes before subtract. I've got to distribute whenever I see parentheses. That's the first thing I want to do. And yes, the minus is with the 2. Well, what about the 5? It just gets to hang out for a minute. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative times negative is what? Positive. So a positive 16 because I'm multiplying. And so once I've done that, now I can go back and say, hey, neither of these have a variable. I can put them together. 5 plus 16 is 21. There's no other x's, so I'm just going to write that in. This has x, this doesn't. I can't go any further. That one's done. So again, reminder, answer key up front if you need to check. Answer key online if you need to check. It's good to get it done. It's even better to get it done correctly. So please make sure that you are checking into those things.